The playlist was perfect. 3 hours of feel-good vacation music, sunscreen already applied, and my favorite travel mug filled with iced coffee. I'd been planning this trip to Maui for months, our first big family vacation in years. Just me, Mom, Dad, and my brother Tyler with his fiancée Jessica. I pulled into my parents' driveway at 6 p.m. sharp, exactly when Mom had told me to arrive for our pre-flight sleepover. We had an early morning departure, and it made sense to stay the night, so we could all leave together. My rolling suitcase bounced behind me as I walked up the familiar pathway, already imagining the beach photos we'd take and the family dinners overlooking the ocean. Maybe this trip would finally bridge the gap that had grown between us over the past few years. Mom answered the door in her bathrobe, looking genuinely surprised to see me standing there with my luggage. "Oh, honey," she said, not moving aside to let me in. "You were never actually on the guest list. We figured you'd be fine alone." I blinked. "What?" "Tyler and Jessica wanted some quality family time before the wedding, and we thought it would be better if it was just the 4 of us. You understand, right?" Behind her, I could see Dad loading a cooler into the hallway. Tyler's voice carried from the kitchen, laughing about something. Their suitcases were lined up by the stairs like soldiers ready for deployment. I stood there in my flip-flops and vacation clothes, sunscreen making my skin smell like coconut, holding a bag packed for paradise while being uninvited from my own family trip. "When did you decide this?" I asked quietly. Mom shifted uncomfortably. "A few weeks ago. We didn't want to hurt your feelings, so we thought it would be easier to just, let you find out now. Easier. For them." I looked past her one more time. Tyler appeared in the hallway, saw me, and quickly looked away. Jessica was nowhere to be seen, probably hiding in the kitchen. "Okay," I said, forcing a smile. "Have a great trip." I turned and walked back to my car, my suitcase wheels clicking against the concrete like a countdown timer. I didn't slam the door or peel out of the driveway. I just drove home, still wearing sunscreen for a vacation I wasn't invited to. That night at 11:43 p.m., my phone buzzed with a Venmo request. From Mom. $5,100, your share of flights and villa rental. I stared at the screen. They'd excluded me from the trip, and were still expecting me to pay for it. I declined the request and sent her $1 instead with a note. "You'll have a surprise." Then I opened my laptop and started planning. The beauty of being in marketing is that you learn how to make things happen quickly when you're motivated. By 2 a.m., I had booked the same flight to Maui. There were still seats available because who books a Hawaiian vacation at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday? But I didn't stop there. I found something better than their shared vacation rental. A luxury beachfront suite at the Grand Wailea, with a private balcony overlooking the ocean and access to the adults-only pool area. It cost more than their entire villa, but I had savings I'd been hoarding for years, waiting for the right moment to spend them. Then I did something that made me smile for the first time since standing on their doorstep. I booked a couple's massage, dinner reservations at the most exclusive restaurant on the island, and a private sunset sailing charter. Because I wasn't going alone. I texted my friend Maya, who I'd known since college but rarely got to see because she lived in Portland. Maya was going through a messy divorce and had been posting about needing an escape. "Want to go to Maui tomorrow?" I texted. "All expenses paid. I'll explain later." She called me immediately. "Are you having a breakdown?" "Maybe. But do you want to go to Hawaii or not?" "I can be at the airport in 12 hours. At the airport, I kept my distance from my family at the gate, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses like I was going incognito. They were clustered together, Dad fussing with boarding passes while Mom took photos of their family vacation begins moment. I boarded in a different group and took my seat in first class, an upgrade I'd splurged on because why not? Through the gap between seats, I could see them in economy, Tyler and Jessica sharing earbuds while Mom tried to get Dad to pose for more pictures. Maya met me in Honolulu during our layover, still looking bewildered but game for whatever adventure I'd dragged her into. She'd packed in 3 hours, throwing sundresses and bikinis into a carry-on like she was fleeing the country. "So," she said as we waited for our connecting flight, "are you going to tell me why you're suddenly whisking me away to paradise?" I explained everything, the exclusion, the payment request, the years of feeling like the family afterthought. Maya listened with the kind of rage that only a good friend can muster on your behalf. "They asked you to pay for a trip they uninvited you from?" "Technically, they didn't uninvite me. I was never invited in the first place." "That's worse." She grabbed my arm. Please tell me we're going to make them regret this. We're going to have the best vacation of our lives. If they regret it, that's their problem. The Grand Wailea was everything the photos promised. Our suite had a view that looked like a postcard, with the ocean stretching endlessly beyond our private balcony. The bathroom had a soaking tub bigger than my apartment's kitchen. Maya stood on the balcony, arms spread wide. I take back every question I asked about your mental health. This is exactly the kind of breakdown everyone should have. We spent the first day exactly how you're supposed to spend a day in paradise. By the adults-only infinity pool, drinks in hand, reading books we'd been meaning to get to for months. No family drama, no forced conversations, no walking on eggshells. It wasn't until day 2 that we spotted them. Maya saw them first, pointing across the beach toward a cluster of more budget-friendly resorts. Is that your family at that tiki bar? I looked through my sunglasses. There they were, Mom in her sun hat, Dad in his cargo shorts that he insisted were vacation-appropriate. Tyler and Jessica sharing what looked like one overpriced cocktail. They looked cramped, stressed. Mom was gesturing at something, probably complaining about the crowd or the service or the prices. Should we go say hi? Maya asked with a wicked grin. No, but we should probably walk past them on our way to our massage appointments. The spa at Grand Wailea was a temple of relaxation. We emerged 2 hours later looking like we'd been blessed by island gods, glowing and loose-limbed. Maya had convinced the masseuse to braid tiny flowers into her hair. We were floating on post-massage bliss when we heard the screaming. What the hell are you doing here? Tyler's voice carried across the beach like a seagull's cry. He was standing 20 feet away, pointing at us like we'd committed a crime by existing in his vicinity. Behind him, Mom and Dad looked like they'd seen a ghost. Jessica just looked confused. Oh, hi, I said calmly, adjusting my new designer sunglasses. A purchase I'd made that morning because Vacation Maya had convinced me I deserved nice things. How's your trip going? How are you here? Mom demanded, marching over with Dad trailing behind her. You can't afford this place. Maya stood up, brushing sand off her legs with deliberate slowness. She'd been a theater major in college, and she knew how to make an entrance. I'm Maya, she said sweetly, extending a hand no one took. You must be the family that uninvited their daughter from vacation and then asked her to pay for it anyway. Dad's face turned the color of his sunburned shoulders. This is a private family trip. Hawaii's pretty big, I said. I'm sure there's room for everyone. Tyler stepped closer, his voice dropping to an angry whisper. You're doing this to embarrass us. I'm doing this because I wanted a vacation. You're embarrassing yourselves. That's when Jessica finally spoke up. Wait, you actually asked her to pay for a trip she wasn't invited to? The silence that followed was spectacular. Mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Dad suddenly found the sand very interesting. Jessica, Tyler said carefully, it's complicated. It really isn't, Maya said cheerfully. They excluded her and then sent her a Venmo request for $5,000. Jessica stared at Tyler. Are you kidding me? She would have been miserable anyway, Mom said defensively. She doesn't like family activities. I love family activities, I said, when I'm actually included in them. The argument that followed was everything I could have hoped for and everything I wished I didn't have to witness. Tyler and Jessica started fighting about family values and basic decency. Mom kept insisting they'd done nothing wrong while Dad tried to play peacekeeper. Maya and I gathered our things and started walking away. Where are you going? Mom called after us. Sunset dinner, I called back. At Mama's Fish House. The reservation is under people who actually want each other's company. That evening, Maya and I sat at an oceanfront table, sharing the most incredible seafood I'd ever tasted while watching the sun melt into the Pacific. Other diners smiled at us, probably thinking we were a couple celebrating an anniversary. Do you feel bad? Maya asked as we shared a dessert that cost more than most people's weekly groceries. I thought about it. I feel sad that it came to this. But no, I don't feel bad. My phone had been buzzing all evening with texts from various family members. Tyler demanding I stop making a scene. Mom insisting this was all a misunderstanding. Dad trying to convince me to be the bigger person. The only text I answered was Jessica's. I'm sorry. I had no idea. The rest of the trip was everything a vacation should be. Maya and I took a helicopter tour of the island, went snorkeling at Molokini Crater, and spent hours just talking on our balcony like we used to in college. On our last night, we were having drinks at the hotel bar when Tyler appeared. Alone. He sat down without being invited, looking defeated in a way I'd never seen before. Jessica broke up with me, he said quietly. Maya started to get up, but I gestured for her to stay. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. She said she couldn't marry someone who would treat family like that. She asked how I'd treat our kids if they disappointed me. He ordered a whiskey and stared at it like it held answers. Mom and Dad are furious, he continued. They're blaming you for ruining the trip and breaking us up. I didn't break you up, Tyler. You did that when you decided excluding me was more important than including me. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he looked at me. I was scared. Of what? That if Jessica saw how we really treat each other, she'd see how we'd treat her eventually. Maya excused herself to the bathroom, giving us space neither of us had asked for. You could have stood up for me, I said. I know. I chose wrong. He finished his whiskey. Mom and Dad will never apologize. You know that, right? Yeah, I figured. So what now? I looked around the bar, at the couples sharing quiet dinners, and the families actually enjoying each other's company. Now I go home and build a life that doesn't require anyone's permission to exist in. Tyler nodded slowly. Can I call you sometime? When I figure out how to be a better brother. Maybe. When you actually figure it out. He left without finishing his drink. The flight home was bittersweet. Maya slept against my shoulder while I watched the Pacific disappear below us. I felt different, not triumphant, not vindicated, just free. At the airport, Maya hugged me goodbye. Thank you for the best vacation of my life. And for showing me what it looks like to choose yourself. Thank you for coming with me. For being the family I actually wanted on this trip. I drove home in silence, past my parents' house without stopping. My apartment felt smaller than I remembered, but also more mine somehow. 3 days later, I got a text from Mom. We're home. We need to talk. I didn't respond. A week later, Dad called and left a voicemail. We're concerned about your behavior in Hawaii. This needs to be resolved. I deleted it without finishing. Tyler did call a month later. He'd started therapy and wanted to process the family dynamics. We talked for an hour. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. Maya sends me photos from her new apartment in Denver. She moved there after her divorce was finalized, started fresh somewhere new. Sometimes she texts me links to flights. Next adventure? I keep my passport current now. 6 months later, I ran into Jessica at a coffee shop. She was with someone new, laughing in a way I'd never seen her laugh with Tyler. I'm glad you were there that day, she said when we talked. It showed me who I was about to marry into. Are you happy? I asked. I'm learning to be. What about you? I thought about my apartment with its new plants and the art I'd finally hung up. About the cooking classes I'd started and the book club where people actually listened to what I said. I'm learning too. That evening, I got an email from a travel company about group tours to Iceland. I forwarded it to Maya with a message. Thoughts? Her response came back in minutes. When do we leave? I never did respond to my parents' attempts at reconciliation. Some bridges, once burned, reveal that there was never really anything worth crossing back to. But I learned something valuable in Hawaii. Paradise isn't a place. It's the feeling of being somewhere you're actually wanted. And sometimes, the best family vacations are the ones you take with people who choose to love you instead of people who feel obligated to.